much. We're so excited to have you and just thrilled. We're all talking about how much we love the knowing, and we have people on here that have experienced loss, fathers, husbands, and others. So, and grandparents, mothers and fathers. And so we're ready just to dig in with you. Thank you so much for coming. And my co-hosts are also on, Alexis and Pam.
Hi, ladies and gentlemen.
I know, yay! Thank you for joining, Kyle.
Yeah,
you know,
the gentleman here.
Yes.
We have a Stephen Crilly here too.
Oh, I see that. Okay.
Oh yeah, I didn't see him.
Okay. Two gentlemen then.
Yeah. Well, let's just dive right in. And I'm just so thrilled because your father, Wayne Dyer, meant the world to me, as he did to a lot of people on this call and all over the world. And so I'm just going to read a little intro bio. Dr. Serena Dyer is a historian of women, fashion consumption, and material culture in the 18th and 19th centuries. This is something I didn't know, so I want everybody.
This I know who you're talking about. This is a different Serena Dyer.
Is it?
Yes. When you said doctor, I thought you were going to say Wayne Dyer. And that bio has been confused with mine so many times.
That is so weird. Yeah, because it's your picture. And I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't know this. So I thought I would read it. Okay. All right.
I can give you a bio though.
Sorry about that. No, we've all read the book. So we all have your bio, and we're also excited. I know that I showed this to you on the podcast, but I'll show everybody now that we're on. It's kind of a little bit weird with my background, but I mean, talk about loving a book. I know that you all know this when your dog ear pages and you have underlines on every page and you just love it so much. Well, and that is, oh my gosh, thank you. That is definitely the knowing. And then Sage is not going to be able to join us, but I have her children's book here, Goodbye Bumps. And so you guys are so amazing. We're so excited to be having you here, and we'll just dive right in.
Yeah, well, I'm excited to be here. I think Sage in a way might actually even be relieved, because the last time when Scarlett and Sage and I were together on her podcast, it was really like me taking over the entire conversation, because Scarlett's book meant so much to me. And I remembered it, I mean, honestly, like word for word. And in fact, I will have to send you the photograph when we hang up. I have a neon sign that I had made for my son's room that says, "Have a lot of fun." Hangs over his bed. And that is just because of your book and Jesse. And I often, when I'm asked, like at the end of a conversation or at the end of a podcast, and I'm asked, what is the one piece of advice that you would give to people? I say, it's something that Jesse Lewis left in a message for his mom and his brother and his loved ones, which was to have a lot of fun. And how much there is so much more wisdom to that statement than just have a lot of fun. Because ultimately what I believe it really does come down to is, as Scarlett said, so many of you, I'm assuming, have experienced loss and have had to decide for yourselves, as I have, with the loss of my father, but also my stepson, have had to decide whether or not we were going to be able to choose to have fun again. Mm-hmm. And that is a choice. And that choice is not one that there's a right or wrong way, and there's no answer to that. And it's every person has a personal experience and a personal decision-making process that they must go through when facing that ultimate question, which is, as a result of everything I have been through, am I going to be stuck or reduced or committed to my grief and my pain and my suffering for the rest of my life? Or because of what I have gone through, can I choose to have a lot of fun. And I don't think that's, and even to say it, to have a lot of fun, I don't think it's, even as simple as that. Can I choose to feel love again or joy? Can I choose to heal? Can I choose to heal others through my experience? And so those words that hang in my son's room are not just a reminder to me of what a hero Jesse has been, but what Scarlett has done in continuing to teach this message for people that have not only lost, but lost in unimaginable ways. And so it really is my honor to be here. And like I said, because I have her book like memorized and it has meant so much to me, it's one of the most impactful books I've ever read in my life. I think Sage was probably like, you know what, you go ahead and take this because clearly you're a fangirl number one over here. So. But she would have been here if she could have, because we both hold Scarlett in the highest regard and all of the work that the Nurturing Healing Love Foundation has done. So
I really appreciate that, Serena. I mean, that reminds me of a story that you have in your book and that your dad said often, which was the story of the man who had, I think if I'm remembering it right, he had just buried his wife. And then he went out dancing and somebody said, what are you doing? You just buried your wife. And he said, well, I was grieving. I just chose to put my grief away sooner and get back to life. So choose sooner. And I think we forget that so much of life is a choice. That's why the movement is called Choose Love, because our power as human beings is in our choice, and we choose every single time we interact with one another how we're going to do that. And I think we don't really realize how much power we have, even in grief. It becomes a choice, and it was a choice for me too. I wanted us to have joy. I didn't want to spend my days grieving. I didn't want to model that for my son. I wanted to get back to life. I wanted to be in awe. I wanted to have curiosity, and I wanted to grow through it. And it's that choosing sooner that is available. It's really available to everybody.
Yeah. And the thing is that if you did not choose that, that would have also been okay. It would have been okay.
Absolutely.
And the thing
we
about
all have our own path. It's right. So true.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing about it is that choosing sooner might not be what works for everybody, but it's knowing that it's there. It's knowing that the choice is there that makes all the difference in the world, because there are people that do not believe that if they experience loss or grief or suffering, or even the loss of not a person, but let's say a career or a home or a marriage, that they believe that they cannot turn that around to allow it to raise them up. There are people that believe that because of those experiences, they must be rooted in the suffering or in the victimization or in the identifying as having the loss, and not identifying as the loss is real and it's there and it exists. But as I said in the book, and as I say all the time in one of my favorite poems, it's what Rumi said: the ladder is placed before each of us at our birth. And the ladder that you have placed before you is different than mine, but you must climb those rungs. Nobody is going to climb them for you, and nobody can push you up the ladder either. But in making that decision to climb the rung, you're essentially saying, this happened. This awful thing, this hard thing, this painful thing happened. It's real. But what is it teaching me? What can I do to become better or closer to God, which is love for me? God is just another word for love. Closer to God consciousness or love as a result of this, or not. And ultimately, that is every person's choice with every difficult situation that takes place in their life. But I believe that choosing to ask, what is this teaching me? And how am I going to become more beautiful, meaning closer to God, as a result of it, is where your own personal freedom lies. It's where they say, that you really are the master of your own ship or the creator of your own fate. I don't think that means that you can stop bad things from happening in life. But I do believe that means that you can decide to see the bad things that have happened as rungs on the ladder that you must climb or not. But which one is going to bring you closer to God? Which one is going to bring you closer to where you want to be or you don't want to be? And I guess that's really why Scarlett's book meant so much to me. And that's why I wanted to write this book in the first place, was that I was not making that choice. I was not understanding that I had that option. And I was feeling extremely stuck in the sense that, if I'm going off on a tangent too, you cut me off, but I'll just finish this one thought, but I could ramble on and on, so just cut me off if I need to be cut off. But
no, we love hearing you.
Okay. Because I'm thinking like, am I supposed to be answering questions? But I'll just say this last piece and then I'll stop. I was, I say all the time that the best thing about being raised in a really spiritual household with like a Wayne Dyer and a Marceline Dyer as parents is that we were taught from a young age to take responsibility for every single thing that happens in our lives. But the bad thing about being raised in a spiritual household is that we were taught to take responsibility for everything that happens in our lives. And sometimes it's easier to say, this isn't my fault, or I have an asshole of a boss, or my husband did this, or, and when I was going through one difficulty after another, I kept thinking, my God, my dad would always say that you don't get in life what you want, you get what you are. So why am I getting all of this? Why am I getting all of this? What did I do that's so bad? Why am I bad? If in a 2 year period of time, my dad dies, we lose all of our finances, my husband and I did, not my dad, my Dyer family, but my married family. My husband is indicted, arrested, goes on trial. My stepson dies from an accidental overdose. My husband is sentenced to 7 years in prison. I have 2 children back to back, and all of a sudden I hate my body and hate the way I look. I mean, everything about myself that I thought made me who I was suddenly no longer having, or I no longer was. So all of a sudden it was like, why is all this happening to me? If I have to take responsibility for everything that's happening in my life, and if you don't get what you want, but you get what you are, I must be bad. And that was the shame. That was the shame, the big, big shame that I started to carry, that I started to live in. And it was honestly through the process of writing this book and working on understanding what my dad had spent so long teaching and writing about that I actually got it for the first time. And that was that when things happen to you that are out of your control, they're not happening to you because you're bad. They are happening because your soul comes here for 2 reasons. It comes here to grow and to expand. And you cannot grow and expand by never being challenged, by never being reminded that you are not how you look or what you have or what your reputation is or who your father is, that you must find within yourself all of the things that you love about yourself, that you love in other people, and become them, become beautiful. And I don't mean on the outside, I mean, become someone full of love for their own place in life, for where they've been. And knowing that now that I actually am starting to see who I am without the money, the body, the looks, the dad, the reputation, the security of a marriage, the financial security, without all those things, who am I really? And that's where I think the statement comes to be true. You get what you are. So can I transform myself from someone who feels like a victim to these circumstances, to someone that knows that I am becoming better by having gone through them, because that is the choice I am making. And that is where the real beauty lies. And I don't know why I just said all of that, but I felt like, because it sounds like there's a lot of people in here that have been through grief and pain and loss. And I think that is the life affirming choice that we all have to make when we've experienced loss. And a side benefit of that is, I believe that raises our energy up so that our loved ones can actually reach us from the other side. I believe that we have to be like what it is that we are seeking. And when we are seeking messages or signs or synchronicities or opportunities or love, reminders of love, we have to become love. We have to come from the place of love. And you get what you are, because when you choose love, you get that. When you choose to respond with hate or challenge or difficulty or pain with love, not only for yourself, but outwardly directed, you get more of that. You get what you are. So I won't rant anymore. I saw Terry, I saw your message. Thank you. I'm glad to know I'm not ranting or raving for no reason.
No, that's incredible. And I know that strikes a chord in everyone, because it's not just loss of a significant other. People have experienced other losses as well. And everyone has been hurt and felt pain. And that is an opportunity for growth and to continue to climb our ladder, as Rumi said. And we have to keep climbing. It's so important. I'd love for anybody else who has a question or a comment for Serena to speak up, or you can type it in the chat box. Serena is seeing that. So you can raise your hand or just speak out.
Can you see my...
Yeah, that's my mom, Maureen Lewis. Serena.
Hi, Maureen. Nice to
Hi,
meet you.
Serena. I have to show you, first of all, your book. It's all turned and, marked. I really,
like
really
mother,
enjoyed
like
it.
daughter.
Yes. But I wanted to ask you, from what you just said, you get who you are, or you get what you are, or is there a difference?
I would say that I don't really think that there's a difference. And now that doesn't mean that because something bad happens in your life, that is something that you deserved. I think that in Western society, we kind of confuse this idea of like karma, or this idea that, good things happen to bad things happen to good people. That's not really what I mean by that. I mean that the choice that we don't have in life a lot of times is what random things happen to us, what unexpected, what uncontrollable things happen to us. When I say you get what you are, I believe it's the same thing as saying you get who you are. Because when those uncontrollable things happen, it is my belief that that is the opportunity to climb the rung. That is the opportunity to become the love-filled person that allows yourself to ascend that next rung and receive then more love. And I think that for me, because I had so many things that were happening all in quick succession, it was almost like I was buried underneath the shame of it, and not really understanding that I couldn't control what had happened or what was happening. Those were things that were truly outside of my control, but I could control. The ultimate freedom was to control my response, how I was responding to it. And the universe, in my belief, or God or energy or whatever you want to call it, would respond in like to me. Yeah, so I hope that answers that.
It does. And I agree with you. When you say you have to reach a certain level of, I guess, openness to conversations with people who have passed. So have you had conversations with Wayne?
Yes, I mean, so many. In fact, I found out I was pregnant with my second daughter because I went to see a medium, a very credible medium named Karen Noe, who you may have heard of. My sister Sage and I've done some work with her. We went to see her at her office, and it was very clear that she was channeling my dad. It was absolutely clear she was talking about things that have never been put online, things that were private that people would not have known. And out of the blue, she looked at me and said, "Congratulations, you're pregnant." And I said, "No, I have a 6-month-old daughter." And my dad met my daughter, so he wouldn't confuse like a pregnancy from 6 months ago with a pregnancy now. So I was just like, I don't know. I was breastfeeding, did not remember any opportunities of hooking up with my husband because my dad had just died. So I was in a lot of grief. So I didn't even remember any getting togethers that happened. Blame margaritas on that one for sure. I joke that Windsor should have been named Margarita, but she said, no, your dad is adamant that it's 4th of July fireworks, something about the 4th of July and fireworks, and that you're pregnant. And I said, well, I was with my dad on the 4th of July. This was right after he passed. But no, I mean, I wasn't pregnant then. I had a 3-month-old with me then. And everything else she said during the whole reading was so spot on that we left. My mom and 2 of my sisters and I left and got a pregnancy test, and it was positive. And I went back, this was in New York, and I went back to Florida the following week and scheduled an appointment. And the first measurement they take of like an embryo or when you're first pregnant is the most accurate. That's when they give you the due date, because everybody's cells at that point are the same size. And they told me, oh yes, indeed you are in fact pregnant, and congratulations, your due date is the 4th of July.
Oh my gosh.
And then while I was in labor, actually actively in labor, I was at the stage of 10 centimeters and pushing, for all the moms in here that know what that means. And Sage was in the room with me. And so was my mom and my husband and a couple of my other sisters. And Sage said, oh, her cell phone started ringing because she was holding her phone in her hand because she was trying to get pictures for when the baby was born. And she said, oh, it's Karen Noe calling. And I said, pulled my oxygen mask down and I said, answer it. And she answered. And she said, and I didn't put anything online that said like, on my way to the hospital, I'm in labor, like nothing that was in any way indicative that I was actually in labor. And she said, Karen said, Sage, your dad is pestering me. He has a message for Serena, but he's telling me I have to call you because Serena's tied up right now. And Sage was like, yeah, you could say that. She's pushing. And she said, that's why he's adamant that I call you, because he's saying he's there. He's right there. And at first I was like, where? Like, Dad, be back here behind my head. Like, don't be there. Like, but then I was like, I knew, I understood that. Or apparently, I didn't actually know at the time, but I came to understand that apparently, those things don't matter from where he is. And I've had, I mean, that's just one very specific example, but I've had so many like that. So many. Where
I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
So that's just one example. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Serena, of course, with the title of your book, having all those signs. I mean, it's amazing reading everything that was in the book, all the different signs. It was like, oh my gosh, it gives you goosebumps, like the next thing you would talk about. And you had said thing on page, I take my glasses off for this one. On page 14, it says, you see, these kinds of thoughts are not always random, nor are they necessarily our own thoughts. It's up to us to tune in and listen. I know you guys, the way you were growing up and everything, you're so intuitive, the meditation and everything. But do you feel people just sometimes don't tune in, don't find that, don't look and see that feather that's sitting there, or different things like that? Do you feel like more people should tune in? And how can we more, tune into that? How is there a way to do that?
Yeah, I would say absolutely. I think that is true, that there are people that I have a good friend, and her name is Amanda, and her mom passed away when we were 16. And Amanda is my age. She's 36. So I would say up until the last 5 years, she was adamant that she never got a sign from her mom. Her mom raised her as a single mom her whole life. And her mom had a random brain aneurysm and just died suddenly when she was 16. She was an only child. So you can imagine the devastation she felt, that for almost 20 years, she didn't feel like she had a single sign from her mom, and she didn't believe in it even. She would say to me, I believe that you get signs, but I think that that's just because of like who you are or whatever. So finally, I convinced her to do a reading with a medium that I know, and she did. And she called me after. She's like, I don't know, I didn't really think it was like that good or that spot on. And I just said, I'm so sorry. Like I recommended it and she paid for it. And I was just like, I'm so sorry. I wish it would have been a different experience, because I have had such positive experiences with her, and so have so many other people I've recommended. Anyway, about 6 months later, she decided to go to another medium that was doing a group reading in person here in South Florida. And it was like 8 people, and it was extremely expensive, like several $100s to go and be part of this like 8-person room where she would go around and read for each person that was randomly in the room. She didn't want to know their names in advance. Different medium, so different experience. And this one was in person. And she called me after the fact and said that after she left that reading, she decided for the first time, like in a few months, that she was going to go back in her phone and listen to the recording that she had made of the first medium that I had recommended to her, whose name is Sarah Renee. She was going to listen to Sarah Renee's reading, and because she knew for sure that her mom came through on this second one, but she didn't think that the messages were that specific, but she knew for sure it was her mom. Something was said that nobody else would know. So she called me and she said, after I left there, I listened to my recording with Sarah Renee that was saved in my phone. And she said, and I just wasn't able to see it. But man, was my mom coming through with all the signs. And she said, and while I was listening to it on my phone, she was listening to it on her phone in her car ride home from the second medium, and a song just started playing on her radio that was not connected to her phone, because her phone's playing the recording, just started playing. It was just like a weird technology thing. The one song that she always said, if my mom was coming through, my mom would say this song. And so she said, so she said, all these years, I wonder how many times she sent a sign and I just wasn't ready or able to see it. And now she is like missed sign all the time. Like now she is getting them. And I really do believe it's because she shifted. She became open. She became in alignment with receiving them for the first time. It wasn't scary. It was like, even the things the first medium was saying, I think it was too scary. It was too much. And I think after that second experience, something changed for her. And I give her as an example all the time, because yes, I do believe that her mom was absolutely giving her signs. And I think she might've just been not ready, and that's okay. Now she is, and now she's getting them constantly. So.
What's the most recent one that you've had from your dad? I know that, I don't know when the book ended till now. Is there one that's more recent in your mind that if I can indulge you to share it with us?
Yeah, so the most recent one I had was I lost a friend recently in December, end of December. And so this is my best friend in the world. Her name is Lauren, best friend of 20 something years. And this was her brother that died. And her parents had both already died. And so have her grandparents. So this is her last living family member. And I have been best friends with Lauren since we were 13. Or 14, right before 14. So anyway, so I've known her brother forever, and he was close to me, not like a brother, because we weren't that close, me and him, because I didn't see him all the time lately, but when we were younger, we were very close. And he was in the hospital because he had an overdose. And Lauren lives in LA and I live here, and he lives here. And I went to the hospital on Lauren's behalf to see him right after he had his overdose. And I went and I saw him and I brought him some Gatorade, and which is what he wanted. And we talked for a few minutes, and that was it. And then I just felt all of a sudden this need to tell him that I was going to come back that day, that I was going to bring him dinner in a couple hours. So I did. And as I was driving there, I felt my dad. I felt him right next to me in the car. And I mean that. I felt his presence next to me, and I felt him with me the entire time I went up to the hospital room to see Blake for the second time. And as I got to Blake's room, I did something that I see Kate's on here. So I know Kate really well. I love Kate. And I did something that Kate could probably tell you is not me at all. I'm not somebody that likes unnecessary feelings of like physical affection. I'm not somebody that does like physical touch. It's not my thing. I don't even like to hug people that I know unless it's like my children. I'm just not a touchy-feely person at all in any way. I did something that was so unusual for me. And I honestly think it was because my dad was like taking over my body, or just his energy had such a weird effect on me, because I knew he was with me. And I sat down on Blake's bed and I put my hand on his hand, and I pulled out a note that I had been carrying in my wallet for maybe like 2 years. And my daughter Sailor is 6. And this was the first note she ever wrote me when she learned how to write. And it said, "I love you, mommy." And this is gonna make me cry. I took the note out of my wallet and I said to Blake, I said, as you know, I have 3 kids and I have a little boy. And my little boy didn't write this, he was only 2 at the time. And I said, he didn't write this, but his sister did. But I know your mom and I knew your mom. In fact, I was in the room with Blake and Lauren when their mom passed away. And I said, and if my little boy was ever alone in a hospital, I would pray to God that somebody would come and remind him that he was loved and that he is worthy, and that no matter what you think you have done to deserve this drug addiction that you're experiencing, you're still worthy and you're so, so loved. And I want you to have this note from my daughter, because as a mother, I know your mom wants you to have this reminder. And I gave it to him. And he and I both sobbed and cried and hugged. And when I left the hospital, I called his sister, my best friend, and I told her what I did. And she was like, you sat on the bed with him? I was like, yes. And I hugged him and I gave him the note, and she was sobbing and she was just saying, thank you so much. He was discharged from the hospital the next day. He came to my house because I had his belongings from his aunt that Ubered them down. He has an aunt that's not a close relative, but she Ubered them down to me. Anyway, and he died right after that. He died right after he was discharged from the hospital. So I was the last person to see him alive, and I saw him 3 times that week. And I know for a fact that that was my dad's presence, that there was something about me feeling that urge to do those things that were so unusual for me, especially towards somebody that I know. Like, if it was a stranger, I probably would have had an easier time hugging him. But because this is a guy that I knew was embarrassed for me to see him in that state in the hospital to begin with, I felt like more awkward than I usually would. And I tend to be awkward. So I know that it was him telling me, just remind him of how loved he is. That's the only thing you can do right now. And I believe that in some way, maybe my dad even knew that Blake was getting ready to go, that was why he wanted me to just remind him one more time how loved he was. And so I know that for sure that was my dad, for sure. It was him. And I'm trying to think of what the other more specific, because I get license plates from my dad all the time. I know it sounds weird, but I get WWD 888 on the license plate in front of me. It'll cut me off, or it will say I had one not that long ago that said Wayne 1, and I was just like, what am I supposed to interpret from this? Okay, it's a Honda. Should I pay attention to Hondas? So anyway, I have so many specific things like that, but this one was a feeling, and it was a without a doubt for me personally.
It's wonderful.
Hi there, Serena. My name's Kyle. How are you doing tonight?
Good. How are you doing, Kyle?
I'm doing great. So first of all, I really appreciate your book. I loved reading through it. I've read almost every one of your dad's books, and I have to say, I'm totally been transformed by them, and I hear so much of him in you, which is truly amazing. And I love it because it inspires all of us. I want to know from you, you went through these tough times after, his passing, and then the trial, and, your stepson, passing away and everything. When was the turning point for you to turn, your life into this, this spiritual teaching kind of life that you're now performing for others and everything like that? Was there a moment where that has happened, and what has been the progression with that, through the years, I guess?
Yeah, the moment was during COVID. I realized I was becoming an alcoholic. I was becoming an actual alcoholic, which was not in my nature. I never had anything related to addiction before that. I wasn't an addictive type of personality when it came to sugar or exercise or sex or anything like that. I could always drink and have a couple drinks and be done. I was never a big drug user. I did some smoking pot and stuff when I was younger, but it was never my thing. I just could easily set those things down and walk away. And during COVID, I got to a point where, because I did not have to get up every day to drive my children to school, I could have wine delivered to my house. And I found myself going from 5 o'clock to 4 o'clock to 3 o'clock and having easily 2 bottles of wine between the hours of 2 or 3 o'clock to 9 at night when I would go to sleep. And I woke up every day feeling overwhelmed with my life. And I woke up every day feeling like I just couldn't do it again. I could not open another bottle and have the shame, and then the hangover, and then the exhaustion, and then the pain, and then the fear over what I might have said or done the night before, or what my children saw. And I felt like I couldn't do it again, but I kept doing it. And I got to a point where I realized I'm going to head in a path that is not one I have to take, but I have to stop the shame. Because the drinking for me was not just because I didn't have to get up. It was because I was ashamed of what I did the day before. I was ashamed of where I was at. I was ashamed of how I looked. I was ashamed of who I was the whole week before. Everything was building on itself, and it was shame after shame after shame. And we were editing and writing during this time, Sage and I were, and we were more in the editing phase at this point. And I had not yet included that part in the book about where I discovered my dad's email to his friend Maithri Guntalek about the pain in his neck, and how he was going to choose from that point on in his life to teach only about divine love. And he was going to choose to live every night, like the Hafiz poem, on a limb in a tree house, and that he was going to shoot his soul to God every night and live there with God before he comes back, to come back into his body and live as himself each day again. And it was discovering that email that was added really late in the book. And it was because that was the turning point for me, that I realized that I could do that. I could do that. I did not have to stay in shame. I could, just like the poem, I could choose to get closer to God and let my shame be like a coat I didn't have to wear anymore. And I just didn't have that realization. Like, I think that shame, for anybody that's been through a lot of it, knows that shame doesn't feel like an option, and it doesn't feel like something you can set down because you decided you could set it down. But something about going through that realization that I was going to become an alcoholic, that I was going to be harming my family, my children, my husband was definitely going to leave me if I continued on this path, and he would surely take our children. And realizing that not only did I not have to keep drinking, but I didn't have to keep carrying the shame. I don't know, that was it for me. That was when things shifted, and then the book flowed, and then I included that email, and then things started to take a turn. That's not to say I just stopped drinking that day. Like, that was definitely like an up and down process of kind of getting better. And that's not to say I've never picked up a drink since then either. It's just that it's not my thing. It doesn't have I'm not suffering internally. So it doesn't have the weight or the desire like it used to. I hope that answered your question.
Perfect. Thank you.
Serena, talk about small world. I met someone, her name's Shannon Desilets, in Newtown. She was providing trauma relief to the victim's parents. So this was almost 10 years ago now. And I would tell her on the therapy table about what I wanted to do with Choose Love. She said, well, when you have done that, I want to bring it to my son's school. So tell me. And I did. It's a long story, but she connected Choose Love with the governor of New Hampshire. He hired her as the Choose Love director for the entire state. She's gotten it into almost all the schools, into the Department of Corrections. We just attended the first 2 prison program graduations. Wow. And but the small world part of this is that Shannon's story with her son was selected for Wayne's last book that he wrote with Dee, about childhood memories. And so
Shannon, we're friends on social media.
We are.
Okay, because I was like, I know who this is. Okay, keep going, because I was like, I know this name, I know this face. Yes.
Aw.
yeah, memories from heaven. Shannon, share your story.
Yeah, sorry, the puppy is crying in the background. Yes, so his final book, Memories of Heaven, page 78 is Jacob's story. 78. The story is he was just shy of 3 years old, and I was carrying him up to bed. He's in this happy, relaxed state, right, as a toddler, and just out of nowhere, he's like, "When I was in heaven, the earth looked different." I'm like, "What?" And he repeated it, and he said, I have it open right here. "When I was in heaven, the earth looked different. He understand me and realized I wanted to come back down into your belly." And I asked him, "Are you talking about God?" "Yes, I was with God, but I don't remember what he was like now." I said, "And you told him you wanted to come back down into my belly?" He said, "No, I didn't tell him. He understand me." And I had a miscarriage before him. So, and I remember, there was some social media post or something where Wayne was wanting to hear stories about the children's connections with heaven. And I just had quickly typed something. And the next thing I know, I get, they reached out to me. So yeah, I feel so special that his story is in that little book. And now, Scarlett, I don't even know if you know this, but every time you call me, it's you and Wayne that pops up on my phone. It's a picture of you two together. I don't know how it got there. Well, we know, right? But yeah, so every time you call me, I feel like it's a hi from him too.
Well, let me just tell you. So I think Kate probably knows this story, but I don't know if you guys know this story. So I was born with a past life memory. Like the first 2 years of my life, first full 2 years of my life, my parents were told that I was likely exhibiting signs of autism, that I would rock back and forth and stare at my hands a lot, that I was really not verbal, that I was hysterical over loud noises, any loud sudden noise. And it would send me into what my dad would call episodes, but they were like a screaming, almost catatonic state for a while. And I used to babble in a language that didn't make any sense to my parents, and they thought that I was likely going to be diagnosed as having autism. And Barry Kaufman, he started something called the Sunrise program after his son had a diagnosis of autism. And my dad had been counseling Barry and his wife. His son's name was Ron. And my dad had been counseling them while they were navigating their son's autism diagnosis. And my dad was counseling them in their marriage. He was not working with the child. And one of the things that my dad learned, and this is very early on in his practice, I mean, this is before he was a writer, this is when he was doing counseling work, was that the parents of this young boy, Ron, they hired two people, and then between the two of them, the husband and wife and these two women that they hired, they would do everything that Ron did in 6-hour shifts around the clock, 24 hours a day. And at that point, Ron would mostly just rock back and forth. And so they would rock back and forth, and they would do what the son was doing. And at one point, Barry said in the counseling session, and this is public now, so I'm not revealing anything that's private. He said that at one point his son looked at him in the eye and blinked. And that was when they knew that they had made a connection. That was the first time he knew in that moment that his son had made a connection with him. Wow. And he talked to my dad about that, about choosing to come toward his son, not with fear or judgment or condemnation, but from a place of love, hiring only people that would do what he did, not from a mocking place, from a place of trying to understand, of trying to put out that energy of understanding. So with my parents, they decided that they were going to do similar things with me. And I'm not saying at all that I was going to have been autistic. I think that is something that, I don't think that you can just make a connection and that goes away. So I'm not just saying that. I think that they have developed a program, and the Sunrise program, and they have done this now for, I think, like 35 years. In fact, their son Ron wrote the foreword to the second anniversary, like 20-year anniversary, I think it was, publishing of their book. That was how much Ron was healed through this process. So they put it together and they started doing it with other families. But anyway, so I was doing things that were similarly bizarre. And my dad said to my mom, we need to surround her with only love, with only love. And that was when they hired our babysitter that we had for like 12 years. Her name is Kelly. She's still like a family member to me to this day. And he said to her, my mom had all these things that, you know, she needed to know for us, me and my sisters, for when we were little, and, you know, they'd take a nap at this time, or they do this, or they eat this. And then my dad said, Kelly, there's one rule and one rule only for me. And that is teach only love. Only love in this household. It makes me want to cry. And anyway, through a series of really crazy coincidences, or as we know, they're not coincidences, they were all divinely orchestrated. My parents brought me to a restaurant on New Year's Eve with them because I was once again hysterical because of the fireworks that were going off. And I was like 1.5, and I was screaming because of the fireworks. So the babysitter called, and my parents decided to just bring me because I only wanted to be with my mom. They brought me to the restaurant, and I was saying my typical nonsensical, you know, jibber jabber in my high chair at the restaurant. And this was at an Asian restaurant. And the woman who was filling the water walked by and said to my mom, how does your daughter speak such perfect Vietnamese? My mom said, she doesn't speak any Vietnamese. We don't even know anybody that's Vietnamese. And she said, so let me just say that my first word was hey phone, like as if you were saying hey phone. And she said, oh, your daughter is speaking Vietnamese, and she has the same dialect as where I'm from, which is Hay Phone, Vietnam.
Wow.
And my mom said, you're from a place called Hay Phone? And she said, yeah, like I think it was HAJPHONG, like Hay Phone, like that.
Mm-hmm.
And my mom said that the woman looked at me and said something back to me. And it was the first time ever I looked at somebody and my mouth just dropped open.
Oh.
And that was a turning point for me in my life, that I was less episodes, less. And I think, again, maybe Ron in this Sunrise program that Barry Kaufman developed, you know, maybe he was not experiencing autism. Maybe he was experiencing remembered trauma, or maybe not, but maybe I was. And that one connection and that one moment was a life-changing moment for me. And it was the first time ever that my dad started to contemplate this idea that we have past lives. So this book, Memories of Heaven, or Memories from Heaven, came from his first experience, which was with me, which this is going to sound terrible. I probably shouldn't even say this, but that's why my dad called me Wing Ding Jingling for my whole life. He did. He called me Wing Ding Jingling because he would joke that I was actually from, you know, a place that was more of a Middle Eastern, or not Middle Eastern, Asian background. And so he would regularly call me Wing Ding, or Winko Tinko it developed into all these other things. But that was his first experience with memories of heaven, with having a child that it seemed like had a memory of heaven. And also, let me just say, at that time, I would do things like hide food in my diaper. That was a big thing I was doing. Was I was taking food from the fridge and I was hiding it in my crib or my stroller or my diaper. And I was constantly acting as though I was going to starve. And one of the only things I wanted to eat was rice. And my parents believed, after, you know, just kind of going through some of this with me, and we did network chiropractic work, like light touch, kind of like what Kate does, like cranial sacral, or just like energy work. And that really helped me to relieve that trauma that I was carrying from, must have been a previous life. I remember absolutely nothing about that to this day. I wish I did. I wish I could tell you that, like, I speak fluent Vietnamese and I've been to Hay Phone, but I haven't, and I don't even remember any of it. So it probably wouldn't even make a difference to me at this point. But yeah, that's where his desire to get more stories like that came from, was that first experience. And then another program he watched about a little boy who remembered being a World War II pilot, and it was documented by Dateline. And he was just fascinated by this idea that babies and children come here and they have memories, not only maybe of a prior life, but of God. And that was particularly what he was interested in, this idea that children, that we all come here with the presence of God so fresh. And how do we forget it and lose it and dull it over time when ultimately that is our own true nature is God? How do we forget that?
Amazing.
What? I'm listening to the Zoom thing. Yes.
I don't think she realizes her microphone's on. It's okay. Does anybody have any questions or anything they want to say or ask as I'm here?
Anna?
I just wanted to say thank you. I was in a car accident. I had my back broken, and your dad, his book, Power of Attention, was one of my healing books. And then when I was reading this book, I felt him, and I thought, wow, he's done such a tremendous job in living through you and your sister. And I'm just in awe of your ability, especially you, Serena, what you've gone through with everything, and loving and understanding that love is what's important, that it doesn't matter the stuff that happens, is if you can connect the heart. And I felt so bad for your stepson, that what had transpired, because sorry. Anyway, it's just
okay.
It's just interesting that people that impact on your life come into your life. Like Scarlett impacted on my life, and I never met her till online. And then here you are, and it was in what do you call it, 2004. I'm sitting there and in bed. I can't get out of bed, and I mean, I had read lots of your, I'm like Kyle, I think I read like tons of your father's book, but it was the Power of Intention that got me to heal.
Come out in a minute.
Right, to heal. So I just wanted to say thank you, and I'm happy that your dad keeps coming back, and I would like my dad, I want to pay more attention. I know I woke up one night and there was this breeze coming through my room, and at first I was scared, and then I went, oh, it's you, Daddy. And then I went back to sleep, but now I want to pay more attention. And I wonder if my mom died when I was 8. And I'm just wondering if she had ever given me any signs, and I didn't know. So
well, as a mother, I can tell you that your mother has been with you since you were 8.
Yeah.
She has been giving you signs since you were 8. And my dad had a pain in his neck that
This is Wayne Dyer's daughter.
That reminded him to become more of a student of divine love and to pay more attention, right? And his was just a pain in his neck. You had a broken back, and a broken back that really brought you to your knees, but you chose to become closer to God as a result of it. And you didn't have to make that choice. So if there's ever any proof that your mother has been by your side since you were 8, it's not just that you made that choice. It's that you can unmute yourself and talk about all of that so quickly and in a way that just makes me wish I was standing in front of you to give you a hug, despite my awkwardness and hesitation to do so. And it's just a testament to you and to the people that have loved you and to the love that you have been able to give others despite what has happened to you.
It's very true, Serena. Very true.
Well, let me show you guys something real quick since you're here. Let me just show you, because you said you read my dad's books. Hold on. Yes, I am wearing pajama bottoms. I hope you guys didn't just see that. I just realized. So I sit here, and this sits right here next to me all day in this office. We broke his arm. The first day my mom gave this to me and said, don't let the kids do anything to it. My kids knocked him over and broke his arm, but I glued it back on, and he sits here. And I think that he's literally doing that same face, the face that Kate and Scarlett and I know so well, saying,
yes.
Look, it's just about finding love. Sometimes it is a break in the back, the loss of a child, the loss of a loved one, the loss of a job. And those are not things to take lightly, but sometimes those are the gifts that we are given that are disguised in packaging that we would not wish on our worst enemy.
Yeah.
But when we choose to see them as gifts, I believe not only do we become transformed by them, but we become closer to them, closer to the person that we lost, or closer to God. And I think that if you are looking for a sign from your mom or your dad, ask them clearly. I would like a sign. I would like you to wake me up if you come in a dream so that I know you were here. And I would like you to let me know without a doubt that it was you. I think that sometimes we think that we're asking, but we're not actually asking. And then I would say, let go to any attachment like my friend Amanda had, on who was going to give the message, or how it was going to come, or at what time it was going to come, or in what form it was going to come. Let go of the attachment to how, when, where the sign from your loved one is going to come, and just surrender to knowing that it is on its way. And I'm telling you, that's when I stopped needing to even talk to a medium, because I would just feel this on my shoulder and be like, all right, I know that you're here and I'm going to pay attention.
That's so good.
That's so beautiful. I know, Anne, you had your hand up. You just need to unmute.
I normally push my space bar and it unmutes, but something popped up. I just wanted to say, like Anna, that I'm so thankful that you wrote this book. You know, your father, I started listening to him when I went through a real change in I had 2 miscarriages, and then everything shifted, and I started to listen to him on my little Walkman in the morning when I'd go out for walks. Remember those? That's how long ago it was. And and then I'd see him all the time at the I Can Do It conferences and, you know, all these things. And when he passed, it was just, you know, to me, I felt such a loss, but I was so thankful that you explained more of, you know, because all you heard was he died. You know, you didn't really hear anything about what was happening with you guys and his family and all the people that were so closely involved with him, you know. And then, like I was telling Scarlett, my husband passed recently, and reading all this stuff in your book, it just is, I read it before I go to sleep because it makes me feel so good, you know, about the signs, and I get all these signs too. And so I'm just really thankful that you took the time out, you and your sister, and I know writing a book, they say, is a lot of work. And I really appreciate that you did this, you know, that we can read and learn so many lessons and so many things you talk about. I go, oh, I remember when he said that. So
well, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
I can honestly tell you, well, I just want to say that I'm sorry about your husband and the miscarriages, because those are real losses as well. As I think a lot of people forget that, but those are real losses as well. So that's a lot. But I will say this, I am at a point in my life, and I never thought I would be here, and I never thought I would say this, but I can tell you that I am grateful that my dad died. And what I mean by that is, I don't have a choice, right? I don't have a choice. It happened. But I don't think, look, everybody is going to die. That's just a fact of life. So there's really no point in saying, like, if it didn't happen, or because it's what happened. But I'm at a point now where I can say that I didn't see my own worth. I didn't know I had my own strength. I didn't know that I could get myself up off the ground. And if he would have been here, I don't know if I ever would have known that. Mm-hmm. And I don't mean that I'm glad that he died, but I'm glad that I know that now. I'm glad that because he died, I have kind of been forced to pick up the shit myself, because he would have tried to do it for me, and I would have relied on him, and he would have made me feel better. And the strength in a lot of ways would have come from him, like parents often do for their children. But I can tell you that I'm grateful to know who I am. And I don't think I would have known that if he would have been here all this time. I think that I can know it because of who he is, and maybe because he's still guiding me from the other side. But I don't think I knew that I could pick myself up before I lost him. And now I do.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Serena, big shoes to fill. Are you going to continue his legacy? Are you going to continue? Are you going to speak? Or what's your kind of plan for, the next parts of your life?
I honestly have no idea. I just say yes to what comes my way. I'm not that great at like marketing myself or like promoting myself. I don't even really think of myself as like filling his shoes. I more think of it as like my dad, like, Kate could tell you, because Kate McKinnon is on here and she's a very close friend of my dad's and of our families. And I think she could tell you that it was kind of understood that he and I have a very similar personality and similar energy. And I think that he always wanted me to come on like his cruises with him and the trips with him, because I think he saw a lot of himself in me. I think he saw a lot of himself in Sage as well. She's very different energy than I am, but she's got more wisdom. I might have more entertainment factor, but she has more wisdom. And so I think that he hoped that she or I or both of us would kind of continue in this line of work. But I think he would be not surprised to see that it didn't take a lot of pushing for me to grab the mic from his stage and say, okay, my turn now.
I love that. Well, we have an hour and I can't believe it's just absolutely flown by. But I will say that, I met your dad. He invited me on stage at the Javits Center. This was 2 months after the tragedy that took Jesse's life. And I spoke for 10 minutes and he said, this has to reach the world. He believed in the message. He believed in the movement. He believed in Jesse. And it is a huge part of our ability also to get this out to the world, over 120 countries. And it's his message. You know what I mean? It's just love. It's teach only love. And that struck me because that's what we do. We teach love. We're bringing love back into the vernacular of schools and some homes, and at least amplifying, nurturing, healing love all across the world. And you are supporting us in doing that too. So that's amazing. And I know that I totally understood when you said that you're grateful. I would never, I get that whole concept. I often say to people who've lost loved ones, I said this to myself, like literally, I'm a Christian. If Jesus came down and said to me, I would love to take Jesse with me up to heaven, or you can keep him here, what would you rather? And a person of perfect faith would say, absolutely take him into paradise, because with pure love and belief, that's where I would want him to be. And when I look at the aftermath of everything that's happened with his murder, I feel gratitude as well that he helped create this platform, and it's gotten so much good out there and saved so many lives and transformed so many more, and hopefully will make love now the choice, the go-to choice, rather than anger, hatred, fear. And so I totally got what you said. And
I knew you would. I knew that you would know exactly what I meant. Because that's been the choice that you've had to make too, like, can I become so transformed by this experience? And can I become so connected to the love that I know that he is now only in, that
absolutely,
that I can now project that outwards and even say, thank you for this.
Yes.
Who would have ever thought that anybody could do that? And it's not that you're saying I wanted it,
right?
But it's like saying, but I see where I was brought home by it.
Yes, brought into your true self, which is exactly what you said. 100%. And the relationship continues.
Yeah.
That's not what we would prefer. You have your cardboard cut out, you know, but the relationship is there. The energy is there. There were a few of Jesse's little friends that came over one day really shortly after, and they were crying. They were missing him. And I said, well, what's your favorite? Each of you tell me what your favorite thing is about Jesse. And one of them said, oh, I like that twinkle in his eye. And somebody else said, oh, I liked he was so funny. He always made me laugh. And someone said, I liked his laugh. And I said, well, those things, that energy of that thing is still there. You still remember it, and you can still hold on to that and learn how to appreciate that, but in a different way and in different things. And so, this is just such, it's, you know, your dad is definitely here. My neck has been killing me all day. My mom, I know, is like freaking out. She's going, oh my gosh, Scarlett's neck hurts too. What does this even mean? I just went to my chiropractor. I literally have a neck brace. I should have just worn it. I took it off for all of you. It has a bandana on it. I wore it all day. I took it off for the book club. But I know that he's here. And
yes, he's saying it was a pain in his neck that reminded him. So
right. So he's here, and he's loving the fact that we're still connected. We've got Kate here and Shannon and all of us continuing to spread his work and love him and love you. And just so, you know, look at all the people that continue to appreciate him and you, and thank you for being a friend to the Choose Love movement and to me. And we'll just continue our work side by side as we go through this incredible adventure that's called life.
Yes, I look forward to it. And I'm so grateful that you had me on tonight, and it did fly by. And I knew that I would be just as fine without Sage, maybe even better, because this was my platform tonight. So Sage,
You took the whole mic for the whole night.
Are you surprised, Kate?
No, I love it. I love hearing you grab the mic.
Yeah, you know I would.
I can see your dad very amused by that.
Yeah, me too. I mean, he would have just been, oh, you think you're going to come up here and do what I do? Oh, you think because what? You've lived a couple 36 years and somehow you've gotten enough and you're going to come up here and teach people? Like, you know, get back down there. So, yeah.
Amazing.
Well, thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much, Serena. Thank you, everybody, for coming and for choosing love.
Yeah. Thank you all, too.
Thank you.